Good evening. Welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Public Safety and Transportation Committee. Today is Wednesday, June 3rd, 2026, and we're in room 205 in City Hall. I am the chair of the committee, Councilor Tariq Lucas. With me here in room 205 are Councilors Julie Irish, Ward 5, Randy Block, Ward 4, Jacob Silver, Ward 8. On Zoom, we have Councilor Roach, Ward 6. I know Councilor Greenberg will be joining us later this evening. Also with us on Zoom is Chief Timothy Cahoon and Sergeant Jason Schlegel of the Police Department. And our committee clerk is Danielle Delaney. And that's all I see for people on Zoom. We have an exciting agenda today and a couple of surprises. Ooh. But we're going to start with our first scheduled item, docket number 172-26. The police department submitting reports of semi-annual public auto inspections for review. I should also add this meeting is being both audio and video recorded. We're going to turn it over to Sergeant Schlegel to present. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, councilors. I appreciate the time. This is just a semi-annual report of what we have for public autos for the city of Newton. We currently have 7 public autos companies that are in compliance. That's Limo Class Incorporated, American Truck Sales, Boston Cool Ride Limo, OMSI Enterprises, A&B Incorporated, EF&M LLC, and Don's Car Service. They are current and in compliance this year. All those 7 companies will be sent renewals by the city clerk's office this September. And I should have all of them re-inspected and in compliance for your next meeting that I see you, which would be on December 9th, 2026.
Thank you. All set, sir?
That's all I have, sir.
All right, thank you. Any comments or questions from councilors? Nope, I don't have any. Ms. Delaney, do we have to take a vote to accept them or?
Yes, to approve.
Okay, so I'll accept the motion to approve.
I'll move to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilor Block. Any further discussion before we take a vote? We're going to try a voice vote, okay? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed? Abstentions? Item is approved, 5-0. Thank you, Sergeant. I believe you are all set, unless you want to stick around for the next couple of items.
Thank you for your time. Have a great evening.
All right, thank you. Okay, 1 down, 3 more to go. Our next scheduled docket item is 187-26, appropriation of $225,000 from June 30th, 2025, certified free cash for police firearm equipment replacement. For this item, we're going to go to the chief, and go ahead, sir.
Council, thank you very much. Sergeant Schlegel's making me look bad. I'm actually away on vacation. That's why I'm zooming into you all today. So I put on a nice shirt. I'm going to pretend like I don't have a bathing suit on, but we'll get through this, and I appreciate your time. So towards the end of the year, I had requested through Ms. Lemieux to docket this amount of funds. We need to replace our firearms. They become an end of life. I'm not sure exactly how long they have had them. It's a 40 caliber weapon, and we're going to upgrade to a 9mm weapon, which is definitely in line with the best practices and standards in the industry now. Additionally, it'll require a change of holsters and related equipment. Of course, that comes with a cost. But most importantly, we're also going to have a reflex sighting system, which again represents the best practices in the industry now. It's a red dot system, and it's a quick reflex sight, which will improve accuracy should I know, God forbid, somebody needs to use their firearm. That's why we carry them for officer and public safety. But it will not only increase accuracy under high stress incidences, but it also gives them more confidence. We did the same in a previous employment where I worked, where we upgraded to this sight system, and some of our weaker shooters, for lack of a better term, increased accuracy, 10, 20% in some cases. Very important. We're responsible for every round that goes down range, as I'm sure you guys can imagine. And anything to improve that will certainly improve public safety. Along with that is a weapon-mounted lighting system. And what that does, and for the officers that may be listening that have 20, 30 years on, we didn't have those back in the day, obviously. And most shootings occur at night in law enforcement, which would require the use of a flashlight, which would mean now you're shooting one-handed. When you're shooting one-handed, you don't have total control over the weapon as you would with two hands, number one. Two, or it may be something where you have to immediately deploy the weapon, which in case you probably wouldn't be deploying the light, which in case you don't see everything you need to be seeing. What this does is mounts it permanently to the weapon and improves, considering most police shootings are in low light situations, it's definitely improvement. All of those require a transition and time on the range. And I think it's a 2-day weapon mounted light program plus the transition to the new platform. So some of that money is built in for the training of that as well. And I'm happy to take any questions you may have regarding that request.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Irish.
A question. Chief, what do you do with the old weapons? And is there a cost associated with that?
There is. It's like a car. We trade it in. So they'll give us, Sergeant in training had already done all of this research and the due diligence. A lot of credit goes to those folks in special operations. But what he did was to find the best deal of what they'd give us for money. And so we'll trade in all the weapons, and there's a trade-in value with that. What we're asking for is the balance of what the weapon costs.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Motion.
Councillor Roach, do you have any questions, just raise your hand and I will call on you. So Chief, I understand the new weapons will have the red dot and a flashlight installed on them, right?
Correct.
Okay. And we heard what's going to happen to the former weapons. And about how long will these weapons last?
Anywhere from like 8 to 12 years, generally. And I believe they've had these current weapons since maybe 2015. It could be earlier, but I think it was around that range.
Okay.
And again, I just want to mention Sergeant Danny Valenti did a tremendous job doing the research. This was already underway by the time I got here. But one thing that when I first met him, this was a priority. And I thank God that he was already halfway down the road of getting these, because it's an undertaking trying to get all the bids, trying to get the right weapon selected. They had some conversations with the unions, different officers, different firearms instructors, and he did a tremendous job. So I just want to recognize that.
And this is just for pistols, let's just call it.
That is correct.
The department also has other firearms. Do those need to be replaced? And when would they need to be replaced? If you just
all depends on how many rounds go through them, right? So we currently have a selection of patrol rifles. We replace them as needed, or we add to the inventory. But right now we don't need to replace those.
Okay. And if you would need to replace the assault rifles, would that be through your operating budget, or do you think that would be a free cash expenditure?
It could be either, okay. But we try to build that in on replacement with some capital items in the operating budget.
Okay. And then the other thing is something that you said is that most shootings occur at night. You don't happen to have a percent about how frequently are the shootings at night?
Harkening back to my firearms instructor days, I want to say it was like 60 to 70% of the shootings occurred at night. But I don't hold me to that. I could get you those numbers, but that's generally holds true for most law enforcement officer-involved shootings.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go to Councilor Silver.
Are the flashlights and the red dots configured to turn on when the weapon is drawn or unholstered?
No. So the flashlight is a momentary and a permanent switch on it, but it's in line almost with your grip of the firearm. It's very simple to operate. The red dot stays on all the time. So as they deploy that, the red dot is there. It's already on.
Got it. So it's like a solar powered or something like that?
It's battery powered, but they last. And again, I don't have the numbers, but I want to say they last at least a year. And you can see when they start diminishing a little bit, because you can dial up the red dot, like the brightness of it, or dial it down depending on what your preference is. But they last a long time.
Got it. Thanks.
And if the battery needs to be replaced, you can just replace the battery, not the whole firearm, right?
That is correct. Yeah, they're modular. You can pull them off. The flashlight especially is a lot easier. The red dot, we want our armorers to do that because they're actually sighted in.
Yeah.
We call it zeroed.
Councilor, you all set?
I'm also
Okay. Councilor Wright. I'm right. Councilor Irish.
You may have mentioned this, Chief. Do the officers require new training, new guns?
They do.
And that was, I don't know if you mentioned this part, so that's built into timing and scheduling of.
Yes. So we're transitioning to a different weapon system. So it's transition training, which requires additional on and above what we normally do for firearms training. And that is built into the number, yes.
Okay. Any other questions before? No. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'd love to make
Go right ahead.
to approve this item.
Okay, Councilor Block has made a motion to approve item 187-26, appropriation of $225,000 from free cash. Any further discussion? Okay, we're gonna, hold on, Councilor Roach, did you have any questions for the chief on the firearms?
Sorry.
No, you're all set?
You only have my apologize.
All right. Let's try a voice vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Item passes 5-0.
Thank you.
And
Thank you very much.
Chief, you have one more free cash expenditure. Item 206-26. His Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to appropriate and expend $105,000 from June 30th, 2025 certified free cash into a non-lapsing account to support the city's police department. And if you could talk about that one and the different money that they're going to need.
Yes, sir. Happy to. So there's 5 separate items here, and I'll start with you should have my memo in front of you, or maybe you've seen it already. I'll start with 1 and 3. So the first item is a partnership with a vendor to enhance our department's recruitment efforts that we've talked about. We've actually spoken to 2 vendors. It's right around the $30,000 mark. It'll help fund a recruitment campaign and something that we can use in perpetuity. Actually, we'll be developing some videos, some other things. We haven't selected a vendor yet, but I've talked to 2 already. One of which is local, one of which is more national, and it does outreach. They help expanded outreach. They do targeted marketing, just more modernized recruitment strategies. because of the hiring environment we're in. We've had these discussions with you folks that it's a different ball game today out there as far as attracting police officers. And this is, in my opinion, one of the best steps that we can take. Along with that, and we've also talked about this, is we are a civil service police department, meaning we hire our officers through the civil service system in a list. Civil service has offered an alternative hiring pathway called the local register. The local register is not taking names off the civil service list, but rather doing something where we design a local process. It's designed to remove barriers of entry for police officers coming on the job. Civil service, as good of a job as that they do, can be a little cumbersome, tough to get officers through that program. It can be a 12 to 18-month process. The local hiring register will open up opportunities for more candidates. And with that is a $20,000 request to partner with a vendor that would at least pay for a year, maybe a little bit more, on helping us run that local hiring register. There is a company in Massachusetts that I've dealt with, and there's a few others as well. They hold the testing on their own. It's not specific to the city of Newton, just like civil service isn't. But if we were to run our own test every time we were doing candidate selection, it would be $10,000 to $15,000 per hit, depending on how many people came to take the test. This is a subscription service where they offer a test. Anybody can take it, if they're qualified to be a police officer, and they do some of their own due diligence and have a list. We can then try to select from that list, and they try to make a pairing. So the $30,000 would be for the recruitment, the outreach effort. The $20,000, again, all part of this 105, would be a partnership with a vendor to streamline our police department hiring process. Those are items 1 through 3. If you want me to run through them all really quick, or do you want me to pause there? And
yes, I was just going to say, if we could stop and just see if anyone has any questions or comments on 1 through 3. Go ahead. Yeah.
It'd be great if you could. I remember when you met with us the first time several months ago, you shared some really interesting statistics about how recruiting from the police academy has changed over the last 10 years. And if you could just reshare it, I think it would be great to refresh everyone's mind on the challenges that have occurred.
Sure. So civil service, again, the police department that I know I was hired in the previous department was also a civil service department. Back when I was hired 30 years ago, statewide, and these numbers are rough, but statewide, we had something in the way of 30,000 applicants throughout the state taking the civil service exam. That has dwindled over time. 2016, we had like 16,000 take it. 2022 was a trough that we hit where it was like 2,700 people in the entire state took the civil service exam. So this was and that's the state police, that's Boston, that's everybody. When you have, I think it's 18,000 police officers in the Commonwealth, municipal police officers, plus the state police. That's a recipe for disaster when it comes to attrition. We have trouble getting folks that want to take that job. It's been exacerbated over the last 7, 8, 9 years. I think the city of Newton had 40 residents on our civil service list out of a city of 90,000 people. In a similar circumstance in the previous city that I worked for, and I had set up a local hiring register that was being actually executed on now by the folks who are running the place now. And within 2 months, they had, I want to say, well, within 2 weeks of setting up this local hiring register and this partnership with a vendor, they had like 200 applicants. So I'm really looking to widen the pool of applicants that we can select as police officers. We're still going to do our due diligence. We still do our background. We still would prefer to have Newton residents or folks that work in and around the city to come out for the job, but we're going to hire the best and the brightest but to cast that wide net, that's how we get them. But those are basically the numbers, Counselor, that I spoke about, I think, the first time I came before you.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions on the first three expenditures? Councilor Block.
Chief, really glad that you and the mayor have asked for funds related to recruitment. As Councilor Silver mentioned, that was one of the very first things we talked to you about when you first came here. Do you feel you've got enough funds for this year at least to do the things that you want to do? That I mean, you've outlined the things. Are you getting everything you need? Well, we need to know that.
I am right now. Yeah. So I came into the budget process late, but I had tremendous success dealing with finance. Those folks were very professional and excellent. We're dealing with Maureen Lemieux, and it was, this is adding on to the things that I thought I would need. But as the year goes on, we never know what challenges we're going to face. We hope to present a budget, and we've already done this through our budget process, that will allow us to be nimble enough to adjust to any of these challenges. Right now, I feel really good. I would love to get our staffing up. We still have some vacancies that we're trying to address currently, and this is certainly going to help in that endeavor. But to answer your question, yes, sir, I do. I feel like we're doing pretty good.
So I've heard about the Fitchburg State program, which runs their own certified police academy for students who want to go that route. And I learned recently, I think that Merrimack College has started a similar program. Those are the only two I know about. How well do you think those programs work? Is that something that somehow Newton can plug into, either the existing students or encouraging Newton high school students to consider these career paths?
Yeah. So I don't know specifically how well those programs are working. What I do know is they produce certified police officers. That is hurdle number one. Hurdle number two is to make sure they're right for the job, particularly in the city that we work in. And that's what the due diligence is all about. We're losing a lot of candidates to physical fitness standards, which is troubling a little bit, right? So somebody could come out with tremendous grades and be certified, and I'm not sure if they have a physical fitness component. They may in Fitchburg and in Merrimack, but those are the things that we're looking to address. The more candidates we can select from, I would say, and by common sense would dictate that generally the better candidates we're going to select ultimately, right? Recruitment, retention, it's a two-way street in this day and age. They're selecting us more than we're selecting them. So we have to be an attractive place to work. We have to be an attractive city to work for. And I think we're on a pretty good path to getting those things done. We already are, but I think we're going to try to improve some of those things as well to make it most attractive we can to the good candidates out there. Again, when I was coming on the job, I didn't want to not take the job for fear of never getting another shot when I was offered a position. Today, it's the opposite. It's becoming more transient. More people are moving around a little bit than I had ever seen. But fortunately, we work in a city that we haven't lost too many officers, but we certainly want to retain the ones we have and attract the ones we want to hire.
Okay, thank you for all that. Thank you
Of course.
for initiatives.
Is that it? Any other questions on the first three free cash expenditures? Okay, Chief, you want to go on to the last two?
Yes, sir. So about 10 years ago, I attended with a bunch of colleagues a use of force seminar presented by Eric Daigle and the Daigle Law Group. He's become a preeminent use of force investigator, internal affairs trainer, policy procedure. He is one of the best in the country and maybe even the world. He was a former Connecticut State Trooper. He worked for the Department of Justice on consent decrees, and now he makes a living training police and also defending cities in use of force cases and things like that. He does this use of force summit every year at the beginning of December. I found it tremendously helpful to get many of my former colleagues through it. It's some of the best cutting edge training you will find for not just officers, but supervisors, command staff, use of force investigators. It's practical guidance regarding use of force standards, liability, report writing, supervisory responsibilities. There's different breakout sessions, some for training, some for administration, some for investigations. It's some of the best training I've ever been involved in. It's a 3-day seminar that will occur, and I'm looking for $15,000 to send probably 8 to 10 officers down there of all ranks. And I think it will give them a good, solid understanding. Sergeants are the first people to look at use of force incidents, and they need to have a better understanding on what it is that we're looking at when you look at a use of force. This is one way to start doing that.
Okay. Chief, did you say what ranks of officers are going to go?
So I'm going to send patrolmen, I'm going to send supervisors, and I'm going to send at least one captain and probably the superintendent.
Okay.
So it'll be a swath. You know, we're sworn 149 sworn. I can't send 149, obviously, but I certainly can send a good portion of them, and it would be something I would like to build in as we continue over the next few years and get as many people in that training as we can.
And how long is the training?
It's a 3-day seminar. I think it's 8 to 4 every day.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And questions on number 4? Anyone?
I sort of have a question, but I don't know that anyone knows the answer, but I would be curious how much the city has expended in the last 10 years in related police department. I assume mostly civil suits, because I haven't heard anything about criminal suits. But it's not blocking
okay.
this. My thought is more that, you know, spending $15,000 to avoid just how much, it seems like a pretty good investment.
Yeah, definitely. Questions before we move on to the last one?
Something for the law department, perhaps.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. Tell Joan I said hi.
Or finance.
And tell us about the last one, number 5.
Okay, so the last one is to hire an outside vendor to conduct an independent audit of our evidence and property function. So this is something that should happen every time there's a CEO change, meaning police chief. I'm a new chief. I would like to have an independent audit of the evidence room. I think it provides a good baseline going forward to make sure that, you know, we review our current practices, our management practices, procedures, storage, documentation, compliance, and I'm pretty confident we are. We're an accredited agency, and they do audits quite regularly, required to by MPAC, Mass Police Accreditation. But this will be an outside audit that I think is more of a common sense, good practice move when you have a new chief coming in.
Councilor Roach.
Will you come present to us when that audit is complete and you have a report?
Happy to.
Okay. You can get a docket item for that. All right. Councilor Roach. Okay. We'll need a doc. All right, good. Okay, Chief, were you did you start working when the counselors toured the police station earlier this year?
I was right after you guys came to visit. I came in February 23rd. You may have visited a week or two before that.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so we had a chance to view the evidence room. It's in, I don't want to say where it is, but we had a chance to view the evidence room, and I'm certain when we get the funding for a new station, it would be much improved. And if and when that happens, would you need to conduct another audit just to make sure everything is where it needs to be?
So the process of moving will organically produce an audit because we'll be putting our hands on every piece of evidence, and there is procedures that go along with that, documentation. Probably not an outside vendor, but it would be a piece-by-piece audit.
Okay, all right. Questions? Anyone on number 5? Nope. Okay. Does that?
Actually, I have one very quick question. Does the audit, I mean, when we saw it, I think a lot of us thought that it would keep chickens in, but not much out. And, the chicken wire area, I think.
We're talking about the room.
Yeah.
Yes.
we visit.
Do these kind of audits also sort of, our thoughts, of course, are like, the compliance of this kind of a location for safe storage of evidence, and is that part of the audit procedure? Or is that sort of independent and, it's what you can work with and it is what it is?
I've specifically request, I've already talked to a vendor, I've specifically request not only obviously the audit itself, but some policy procedure recommendations and any action items that they deem appropriate. Now, our evidence room is compliant. It's not the prettiest, but it is compliant and it's organized very well. The officer assigned to evidence does an excellent job. And we had a brief meeting with some potential auditors that already came in, and they made a comment to that it's very well organized. And but the room itself could be better. I think it was a horse stall back in the day, a couple of them, right? So it's an old building, and the way they have set it up is adequate, but it could be better.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on number 5 or any other expenditures that the chief mentioned? If not, I'll accept the motion to approve.
I'm ready to move to approve the entire item.
Yep. Okay, let me just, because Irish has my agenda. No, that's all right. So I'll accept a motion to approve docket number 206-26, appropriate and expend $105,000 from June 30th, 2025, free cash. Any further discussion? All right, let's try a voice vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's 5. Opposed, abstentions, ayes have it, 5-0. It passes. Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much.
And now we have our last item, docket number 186-26. Councilor Silber requesting a discussion on House Bill H3754, which would authorize traffic speed cameras in Massachusetts to be placed by municipalities with a desired outcome that the City Council endorse this bill. So we have some surprises today. Councilor Silber has a video he wants to show, and we are also joined by State Rep Greg Schwartz, former Newton City Councilor, who's going to talk to us about this bill. But for right now, I want to go to Councilor Silber and the video. If you just want to introduce the video, it's really exciting. I've already seen it. It's not going to win any. It's not going to win any Academy Awards. But Councilor Silber, go ahead and if you want to.
Sure, I'll introduce it briefly.
Yeah.
So, in the last week, I think it's pretty well acknowledged right now that the level of dangerous and what I call disrespectful driving has become much more significant than certainly during the pandemic and before that. In the last week and a half, I saw some red light running that I was honestly shocked by because, I've seen people push yellows, I've seen people run reds, but this was like 5 seconds after the red turning, just blasting through the car. And these are two different intersections. This was in the last week and a half, and I couldn't believe it. So I have a dash cam in my vehicle, and because I've actually been caught a hit and run driver before with it, so it's actually an economic investment. I recommend it to everybody. But I have both of these on recording, and I figured I would share it because, I'm sure you've all seen this, but hey, we got to lift things up a little bit here at City Council. So let me, and if the video doesn't come over well, if you're coming in by Zoom, I'm happy to send you the link. It's on YouTube. Unlisted, but it's on YouTube.
There you go.
And I've titled it Bad Driving. So everyone see it? At least the black screen.
Yeah.
Mental.
And there's no audio because I wanted to keep it G because you don't want to hear what I would say. But I'll just explain what you're seeing. You're going to see the main video, which is forward looking, and in the bottom right corner, you're going to see the rear view camera, and I'm just going to dictate, sort of point out what's going on. So this is Friday, June 22nd, 11 p.m. I'm driving on Route 9 westbound, past the Chestnut Hill Mall, coming up on the intersection of Langley. And if you look in the bottom right, you're going to see a car that's in the left lane, so it'll be on the right side. And you'll see it's going to start moving over to the right lane because it's always a good idea to pass in the right lane. Mm-hmm. And now you see the light turning yellow, red, and that's when it blasts through the intersection. And I think it's about 5 full seconds. So, and you see somebody crossing, and you see a pedestrian crossing.
Where?
Just
I can roll back just a little bit. You see them running across right about there. So I think it's pretty reasonable. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see.
Okay.
Look, they're kind of dashing across.
Oh, I see it. Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, if this person had started out early, that could have been a fatality. This was, 9 days later, and this is westbound on the off ramp. Eastbound on the off ramp of Route 9, turning north onto Hammond Pond Parkway, going underneath the underpass. You see, there's a car right behind me. It's a black Mercedes, and I pull up. You'll see the light turning yellow and red, and then the car just kind of coasts by, turns into the wall.
Nicely done.
And then it actually pulls, it sort of speeds past. I can see, it's harder to see, and then starts shooting back behind the street. So the north side of the street where there's a pass through. So quick videos, but this is all in the period of less than 2 weeks. And again, pretty egregious. So I wanted to preface that, which is that, we have limited tools and it's been challenging, and I'll hand things off for the discussion.
All right. Thank you. Representative Schwartz. Ms. Delaney, can you make him a
Yes.
co-host?
Yes.
Hold on for a second. You can just tell us about this bill, where it is
Okay.
in the legislature, like what you don't like.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Jacob, for the video. That's startling but not surprising. I've seen it's exactly in that first situation, that first area, a lot of bad behavior in that right-hand lane. Folks kind of trying to get ahead of the regular traffic that's in the left 2 lanes that are, pretty much aware that it's going to narrow after that intersection. And I'm always amazed that people are such jerks that they not only jump the light like you were showing, but even when the light's green, they stay in that right lane and then they push into the middle lane, causing potential conflicts. Yeah, so the bill that I believe that you guys are interested in is H3754, which has a companion bill in the Senate, S2344. And basically, the the bills both are pretty much identical, and they would allow cities to opt in to a program to provide traffic calming cameras in a number of locations as identified in on city streets, as well as on portions of state roads with the approval of DOT that are in the municipality. And the city roads would have to be approved by the city council and signed by the mayor. The law allows the folks that are cited by these traffic cameras for violations to be fined between $25 and $150. Essentially, the law leaves it up to the city council to determine that fine. Essentially, it calls for a municipal designee to be identified by the city or town that's adopting and opting in, and that designee would be the person responsible for the program, working closely with the police and public safety officials, as well as the city council or the select board. So the bill goes into some details about how the designee would work on identifying locations, the fines, like I mentioned, and there'd be an annual reporting requirement that the cities would and the designees would provide about the number of fines in that year, the crash data during that year, an analysis of whether there was the frequency of traffic stops before and after the institution of the traffic cameras, were how that altered the behavior, as well as the nexus. This is a little bit general, but it says identify the nexus with public safety of these traffic calming measures. Folks who are cited would have up to 60 days to contest the violation and the fine. And then if they were not satisfied, they could also pursue further judicial review within a short time period after that 60 days expires. They can contest it either through the mail or in person. And there are some exceptions to violations. For example, if they were getting out of the way of an emergency vehicle or a funeral, or it was necessary to go through the light in order to comply with other traffic rules, or if the car is stolen, if it had been reported as stolen at the time of the violation. So that's kind of how the bill is framed and set up. The posture of it, well, it's had support. We heard from folks in the bike community especially, but it's been supported by many public safety folks, the ACLU. I guess in the past there had been concerns about privacy. And certainly in these times of the federal government being so, on top of everybody's personal information and the dangers of that, there's been concern around that. The ACLU now feels that this meets their concern, their muster. They're neutral on it. The way it would work is the photos, the videos would be actually housed at an intermediary, not the government, but a private company called Verna, and encrypted, so it couldn't be bootlegged. And they would work. There's a whole system of which they would work through human review of the determination to confirm it, and as I mentioned, the opportunity to appeal. The records could be subpoenaed by courts, so that's the only issue that I guess is a little bit of concern. the fines, the recovered fines would go to the city, but because of this, there's been a concern that cities and towns might set up speed traps and things like that to increase their revenues. So by going through this middleman, it tries to prevent that. Um, the police and the American Association of Automobiles, AAA, all are supportive. It's been done in New York, in DC, and in Maryland. Um, the current status and posture of the bill. So on the House, and there's a joint committee on transportation. It was heard in last year. The way that our current rules work, because there used to be log jams trying to get both sides to agree to move a bill, and things would just stay in committee until they both agreed. This session made it possible for one side, the Senate, for example, or the House individually, to poll its members and move a bill forward, not necessarily waiting for the other side. So it was moved forward by the Senate side of the committee, and it now is in the Senate Ways and Means Committee. The House side, on the other hand, has not moved it. I didn't get a chance to ask the chair or the staff today about that, but I'll see what they tell me. But it's still possible. It can be reported anywhere up until July 31st. What I suspect, as I'm starting to see in a number of other cases, is that when the Senate moves something fast, even when the House likes or is supportive of something, and this works in reverse as well. If the House moves something fast, even if the Senate is generally favorable to it, so basically, when one chamber moves something fast, oftentimes the other chamber holds back because of the need to down the road anticipate a negotiation. So it all depends.
Nope.
Oh, no.
The floor and pass it favorably. Can you hear me?
You froze for a second in there. Can you just repeat that last sentence?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. So I was just saying that my suspicion is that the first thing that's most likely to happen is the Senate Ways and Means Committee would release it to the floor on the Senate side, and it would be voted if there's enough support for it on the Senate side, and passed in the Senate, and then would probably come back to the House either through a referral from the Senate after something's been passed in one chamber, it goes to the other chamber, or less likely would be that the Committee on Transportation would report it out favorably, and it would go through the House side as well. But my suspicion is that this will be primarily on the Senate side, but I will double check for you guys. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to check on it today. I think that the fact that there's not opposition from the ACLU anymore, I think is very favorable. The bike folks were encouraged by that, but this has apparently been, this is my first session, so I apologize, but this has been a recurrent effort, and sometimes it takes more than a couple sessions. But as a person who uses the roads and also obviously has seen the results of accidents both medically and personally, I think that this is a very reasonable bill. Both Amy Sangiolo and I are co-sponsors on the bill. We've been supportive of it throughout, and it would be great if Newton decided, if this passed and Newton decided to be a member, to opt into this program. It would, I think, it could only help our public safety.
All right, thank you. And please stay around if we have any questions. I want to bring them to committee, but before I do that, I just want to check in with the chief. If you have any remarks on this bill and the importance of public safety.
So I do. I appreciate the opportunity. So I'm not going to oppose it, but I'm not going to support it in its current form either. There are some concerns. The Mass Chiefs of Police Association has some concerns, and they've authored a memorandum articulating those. It's fairly lengthy, but I'll try to sum it up in a couple of things. So in particular in House 3754, the common movement violations, I think it's the 4 movement violations: red light, right on red, speeding, and blocking an intersection. And listen, like, we would love to be able to have something that would be a force multiplier in every community, and also Newton. Traffic issues are probably the biggest complaint you all hear about, as well as my office and the mayor's office. So in spirit, I am certainly for using, as you guys know, technology to leverage that so we can be more effective. No doubt about it. However, there are a few issues that they have, and I believe they have talked to the state delegation on that. I don't know if Council Representative Swartz, if you've heard from any of them yet.
I have not.
I'm hoping they will soon. I know the Mass Major City Chiefs also have a few concerns. One of which is there's the first two are the removal of the officer's discretion and the loss of collateral public safety yield during a traffic stop. So as long as cops are still stopping cars, to me, this isn't a huge deal. However, they articulate it that their police officers' judgment about circumstances at the scene. There could be road and weather conditions. It could be emergency conditions. So when you have a inanimate object making that, flagging a violation, it would still go to a municipal designee, but you would lose an officer's judgment about that. The second one, collateral public safety yield. Crime travels in cars many times, and you could have a traffic stop for a minor violation that turns into an arrest for a significant violation. Now, this is part of Massachusetts Police recommendation. My editorial on that would be, as long as cops are still stopping cars, I don't have a huge issue with those two things. The third thing they bring up is strict owner liability and the operator identification problem. So Section 3 in this bill imposes liability on the registered owner, not the operator. And affirmative defenses are pretty narrow, like a stolen vehicle, a funeral possession, yielding to an emergency vehicle, or an operator actually cited by a police officer. Or it could be a necessity to comply with another law. Those would be affirmative defenses that a registered owner could talk about. The owner-based civil liability is definitely constitutional. It's already been decided. But what we lose is, there's no consequence of an owner not identifying the operator. I guess the consequence would be that owner would be subject to the fine. What we would lose in a public safety standpoint would be an operator similar to Councilor Jacobs' videos there, that those operators who repeatedly uses another vehicle registered to somebody else doesn't accumulate the record if it's strict liability on the owner. So it's, again, just something that could be flagged for improvement of this bill. And there is also, I agree with the Representative Swartz when we talk about the money aspect of it. The last thing we want to do is have a self-promoting enforcement mechanism to get money back. However, we don't want to create administrative burdens financially and time-wise on a city without being able to recoup some of that cost. And there's significant administrative burden with no offsetting revenue. That could be difficult. They flagged that as well, Mass Chiefs of Police. The administrative enforcement, it's outside of the police process. And it has significant Chapter 9 through the RMV and non-renewal sections, significant consequences that are completely outside the police process, which again there's a few issues with that. Now, that I just threw a lot at you. I do have a memo that was drafted by the Mass Chiefs of Police. I'm happy to send that out to you, and also Representative Swartz, happy to send it to you too, so that we can facilitate more discussion on improving the bill. but they basically sum up with some minimum amendments. They have 4 of them listed, and one would be a defined role for the chief of police, particularly as it relates to camera location selection, and should be able to serve as a designee to administer the program under contract with a designee, or should be eligible to serve as a hearing officer. 2, operator identification mechanism. An owner who is not the operator should be required to identify the actual operator, subject to good faith exception, with 90K notice and any RMV consequences then following the operator. So let me back up. The 90K notice is, I think it's 3 unpaid. This is all under 90K, this bill. So we operate in Chapter 90. This is 90K. 3 unpaid Chapter 90K notices trigger a registration hold, meaning you can't renew your registration. 5 unpaid notices trigger a license non-renewal or a right to operate suspension. So, and again, that would attach to the owner, not necessarily the operator. So what Mass Chiefs of Police ask is operator identification mechanism. They should be actually required to identify the operator. And again, it addresses the repeat offender rather than the repeat owner getting tickets for somebody else in their car. There should be an evidence preservation exception. It's a narrow destruction. I think it's 48 hours that there's a destruction inadmissibility rule. And Mass Chiefs of Police asked that should yield on a narrow showing to the needs of a separate criminal investigation. And then 4th, uniform methodology for traffic stop analysis. And again, Mass Chiefs of Police asked the DOT should define the baseline period, scope, and methodology by regulation so that pre and post implementation data are comparable across municipalities. So again, I haven't done an extraordinarily deep dive in this. I like the idea of it. I did yield to some of the groups that I associate with, and these are mostly their concerns. I echo some of them, but I think it's a good start. I think it's as far as it's come along ever. And I would like to see maybe some amendments attached to that if we could. I yield back, sir.
All right, thank you. That is a lot.
It is.
I also just want to recognize we have another special guest, Representative Amy Sangiello, who I think Representative Schwartz said is a co-sponsor of the bill too. Do you have any thing you want to add to this discussion?
No, I'm sorry I joined late. Thank you, Chief, for sharing your the concerns. I subsequently, after I signed on to the bill, heard from a Lower Falls resident who's also concerned where her car got tagged, but it was her son that was driving the car. So thank you for bringing that point up, Chief. Really appreciate that.
I was just going to say the same thing. Don't loan your car to your kids. I saw Councilor Roach with a hand up, and then we'll go to Councilor Silver.
So a few things. Just on an administrative matter, Chief, if you could send that memo to Clerk Delaney to distribute to us, that would be terrific. I've been following this for about 20 years. I had a conversation with the ACLU a long time ago, back when they were adamantly opposed. And so the fact that the ACLU is on board is a significant
they're neutral, but yeah.
Okay, so they're not blocking it.
Right.
In the time since this was first raised, there was at the time a limit proposed of 3 locations per municipality. As far as I can tell, that's no longer there. So what's the value of our having a resolution, right? And I think this is a good one where there is actually value, because one of the things that we have to do is we have to sign on to participate. And so I think by stating that we would sign on to participate, I'm presuming that our state reps, that is meaningful support when you go before and say, you know, we're going to vote, and our city not only supports it, but they're going to implement it. So I think the resolution to implement has more meaning than a typical resolution. I gotta say, Chief, I don't share some of your concerns. And the reason is there's nothing about this bill that limits patrols. And therefore, there is no, yes, there's limited discretion for these very objective violations, and there's no ability to follow up and see if these are criminals who are also traffic violators. But absent these cameras, we get nothing. And so it's not like we're denying the police in Newton or in anywhere else the ability to investigate crime. These are people who would just be speeding or running red lights or blocking the box that the police would have no interaction with. And so this is a supplemental interaction with the system. I am also not terribly concerned about strict liability. This strikes me as responsibility for the use of your automobile in an unsafe way. And if you can't, cars kill and cars hurt people. And if you can't maintain control of your car through a third person that you lend it to, then that's on you. And I think that this will have a largely practical effect, a largely practical benefit. I will add the last thing, which is I think that we need to be not one more thing after this. We need to be super, super clear that when we do this, our goal is to collect zero revenue. And by that, I mean advertise speed cameras, signs before the speed camera, signs before the red light camera, turn this into a prevention mechanism and not an enforcement mechanism. And if we can put these in school zones, and speeding through school zones stops overnight, and nobody gets a ticket, bravo. So I think that we would be super clear that for Newton, our intention is to reduce traffic violations and not to catch people and generate revenue. The last thing I'll say.
Can I just add a brief comment on that?
Well, you don't have to go to the chair, Councilor Silver. I would love to have a conversation. Why tease them?
Very briefly, the Senate bill is slightly different from the House bill, in which it specifies that there are no net revenues over program costs. I wasn't sure about that, but I just went back and checked it. So the Senate bill says any money that's in excess of and all the money that it costs the municipality to run the program comes from fines. Anything over that, over reasonable costs, goes into a centralized fund at the state level. So I will add that, especially because now we know that the Senate bill is proceeding at a different pace. So I just wanted to add that.
But I do think that it wouldn't kill us to say our goal is to, and if it costs the city money, I'm good with that, because our goal is to create safety and not catch people. Okay, the last thing I'll say is I'm super grateful to Councilor Silver for bringing this before us. Thank you.
Okay. Can I add something to that? You said, I read the House version. I haven't read the Senate version, but I assume it's in both. that you have to post a sign saying this is a speed enforcement course.
No, you do
So,
have to post a
yeah.
sign, but and that's great
Yeah.
because the posting of the sign says you can't kind of trap people, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But and if you look at the data story, people speed through the sign despite the signs. People run red lights despite the signs. Our goal as a community should be to be using these as a mechanism to slow traffic, right? Our goal here, and maybe that can be part of our resolution, is our goal here is to reduce violations because people are concerned that they're going to get caught, not try to catch people. So, thank you.
We've been joined by Councilor Nelson Mary Ann. Did I introduce you, Councilor Greenberg? We've been joined by Councilor Greenberg, part of the committee, Leary, not part of the committee.
I a couple
Silver.
40 minutes ago. So one of my comments was about the differences in the Senate bill and that being revenue neutral. I think that's an important thing. And you know, as much as I would like to find a way to fund the city, I don't think this is the way to do it. The second thing is, you know, I want to talk about two different aspects. First is that, as we know, it's becoming harder for the police to recruit, which is what it is. Second, we just can't hope that our officers can be everywhere at once. I included, and I don't know if it's in the packet, but you know, we have about we're 17, almost 18 square miles and 280 miles of road. And in 60. Okay, well, it might be 280 in like line road or something. So anyway, the point being that 280 is a conservative estimate. And at any one time, and I think we talked about this during budget discussions, we might have 10 or 15 officers, you know, on duty. It's just the math.
Patrol. There's more on duty.
That's true. Patrol. But you know, the math doesn't work. You can't be everywhere at once. We have very limited tools outside of police to truly slow traffic down. And this, you know, one of the top things I heard, especially related to, you know, I hear this all the time. Can we put in speed bumps? Well, no, we can't put speed bumps in because they're damaging to emergency vehicles. Speed tables are too expensive, $250,000 pop. I mean, I guess we could prioritize putting them in everywhere. I introduced a docket item earlier for this new technology that basically serves as the opposite of a speed bump. Obviously not, you know, based on that, it's not possible because of limitations. It's not something deployed yet in the United States. We just don't have tools, and all the tools we have are expensive. So I really would rather not have this technology at all. I would just like people to not drive like they're driving. So I would like to not be here docketing this item, but I don't feel in good conscience that I can go back to constituents who've asked me again and again and again and not say we're doing everything we possibly can to cut down on this aggressive driving. So that's kind of where I'm, you know, I'd rather not be doing it, but I feel like we have to.
Councilor Block.
I find the discussion regarding the fines interesting because we all have a fiduciary responsibility in this city. And we've talked about changing the fines here, all sorts of other fines, parking fines, all sorts of other fines. And to me, the question is not, is this new technology and the violations that it will document going to generate money or not money? The question is, what should the level be so that it discourages this behavior? If it's $50, it's $50. If it's 100, or if it's graduated, I think, we'll have discussions about that. Probably starting right here. And to me, whether $50 an incident, given the number of incidents that will happen, we don't know how many. We hope none. We of course hope that people start obeying red lights all the time and don't speed on Route 9 the way you documented, in addition to blowing through a red light. We don't want people behaving that way, but it's not likely to zero it out. So the revenues that it generates are the revenues it generates. I'm actually a little concerned about the requirement that a city can't retain more revenue than the cost of operating the program. So we've now got a new analytical requirement. Every city, and including us that implements this, will need a way of determining the cost. What's the cost? Percentages of the chief's time, percentage of how many people are going to have a little bit of their work time devoted to this. I don't know, but somebody's going to have to sit and figure that out. There'll be estimates, there'll be assumptions, there'll be all those things. And is this going to be controversial? I hope not. But I could see a lot of different towns developing different procedures for calculating all of this. One more thing for people to go to a conference about, to try and sort through. One more thing for people to listen to TED Talks about. And I think that's really unfortunate. I wish this could just be simplified so that the state didn't feel defensive about this. And I feel that we're feeling a little defensive. We're not going to balance the city's budget on this. It's going to be a trivial amount of money compared to the total budget. But whatever it yields, and I sure hope we don't spend a lot of time worrying about, well, how do we figure out the actual cost and segregate all this revenue and send some surplus amount to the state central fund, which I don't know what the state plans to use it for, but they're not just going to sit on it. Somebody's going to spend it. I'd rather it be the city of Newton, but that's just a comment about the future mechanics of this. But I will say, as from the tool point of view, we do need more tools, and I look forward to figuring out when and how we can deploy this.
So, are you all set?
Yeah.
So one thing I did read in the House bill is that there is a 6-month grace period. So if it's approved and implemented for those first 6 months, there are no fines, there are warnings. Then afterwards, you'll get the fines will pick up. So I saw Councilor Leary. Anyone else on the council? Okay, well, Leary, Greenberg.
So I'm sorry I missed most of the discussion, but I wanted to stop in because I did go to the lobby day where this was discussed.
Yeah,
you see my photo in there?
I see you were actually in the agenda 3 times, the way how Jacob presented the agenda. I'm like, I already, again? Yeah, so.
Well, I was so impressed with how they had devised this bill, especially like I want to say 10 years ago, there was another bill that came up that was also sort of aimed at this. But the concern was that it would be, targeting certain communities or, people and things like that. And it's not like that at all. They've made significant changes, which I'm sure you've already talked about, on how to protect, some communities and how specific it is and how technology has really made very good changes that make it sensible. And there were a lot of advocates there who talked about people who were killed by reckless driving. And it's just an awful tragedy that we hope we can avoid, of course. And my main goal is that I see, how people drive. And I think if people know they're being watched, I think it will be improved. And I think we also need to be thoughtful about where these cameras will go in, obviously. in the busier areas where they could be more effective. And I do think it would be helpful to take some of that work off our police department for this. But, so I'm fully in support of it. And I was just curious if there were any like specific like concerns people had about it yet, or that they feel they need to better understand, or if the committee was wholly like more thinking this was a good idea for the city to move in.
So, I mean, the docket item is requesting a discussion. So at the end of this, I assume we're gonna NAN, and then I guess, if you want to draft a resolution or a letter and pass it around the council, I don't know how we're gonna do that. But it's just a discussion right now. We're not voting on anything.
This is opt-in legislation, isn't it?
Yes.
So, yeah.
So the legislature, just Beacon Hill, has to pass it, and the governor has to sign it, and then we can implement and then eventually install the cameras. We have Councilor Greenberg, and then I see over there Doug, and then we'll go Councilor Irish, and we've also been joined by Councilor Gordon, not on the committee, but always welcome. Councilor Greenberg.
Thank you, Chair. I apologize for missing your presentation.
I will send the video around.
Sorry.
Riveting stuff.
It's gonna get me some clicks and maybe I'll make some money.
Yeah, revenue.
But you made some wonderful points, about the police, having enough police to take care of our roads and make sure they're safe. And Councilor Roach, you made some excellent points also. I'm just a little concerned about the chief's concerns that he has with it, and I'd like to learn more about his viewpoint, and then look forward to reading his memo to learn more about his concerns before I support this. And then I'm also wondering if this technology tags the owner of the car, how does that discourage the driver from not repeating that type of behavior? That's
The owner will
We'll say you can't drive my car.
But they'll drive other cars and
That's-
they don't get the consequence.
That's what the chief was saying, that if the actual operator of the car, if it's not the owner, isn't being fined or, legally punished. Hold on, I see all these hands, I want to stay with
So
you.
that's one of my
Yeah.
questions about
Okay.
this whole
Yeah.
process.
Right.
Yeah.
May I have a stab at answering that question?
Go right ahead.
I think the key is this is supplemental to anything we're doing currently, right? And so it may be that there are some people who, just go to lots of cars and rack up violations for other people.
Yeah.
That my sense is that that's likely the exception, not the rule, and the people who are driving their own cars, who have control over who drive their cars, are likely to be discouraged from any of the 4 violations because of the risk of a fine.
Is there any data from other towns regarding that?
In terms of the impact of speed cameras on traffic cameras on the behaviors.
Yeah. No, on the actual driver.
No, but it's the fact that the camera discourages. I think ultimately what we care about is when we put a camera on a street or an intersection, does that slow traffic?
Oh, right, I understood that point, right.
Yeah. And so the fact that there are these exceptions that are out there, we can't capture everybody. I think we need to focus on the main purpose of this, which is what is it going to do on a stretch of roadway? And I think the data is pretty clear on that these are, this creates the outcome that we're looking for.
Okay, we're gonna go Councilor Irish, and then we're gonna go to Doug in a second.
Interesting discussion, so many nuances about this, but the one thing, something Councilor Greenberg brought up, is looking at the data that's out there, used in New York and DC, and obviously in Maryland. I think it'd be worthwhile to really look, even though there might be slightly different, but to look at how it's enforced, whether there was a behavior change, and what were the outcomes of the fines. I think that would be part of our homework before we, either want to sign on, but to see what's been out there. And I'm sure there's several reports, but it would be worthwhile to review the data. And also thinking about if we were to implement it, also make it sort of data driven around where the locations would be.
Yeah,
That's really tricky, but
Yeah.
anyway, so I just think it'd be worthwhile looking at where it's been done and what they, how it played out.
Okay, we also are joined by Doug Cornelius. Just want to introduce yourself.
Sure, Doug Cornelius, 15 Albright Road. I'm here on behalf of MaxBike, the statewide cycling advocacy organization. I'm chair of the board of directors of MaxBike. We had a lobby day earlier this year with several other transportation organizations for this bill. I want to thank Representative Schwartz and St. Joe, who we met with, and as a result, decided to be co-sponsors of the bill. Councilor, they were there with us as well too, pushing that along. This is a couple pictures and summary back to me as well too.
The big package.
In terms of effectiveness, numerous studies which we put in place. Some have shown anywhere from reducing speeding by 20 to 70%, crashes by 5% to 70%, and most importantly, injuries down 5 to 70% with these speed cameras.
What is that number?
5 to 70.
5 to 70?
Yeah.
That's a big range.
It is.
Okay.
Okay. It's been implemented in place.
All right. Yeah.
It's not sort of comprehensive. There's lots of papers out there that analyze data through how it's been. Yes, but incredibly effective to do this, to reduce the violence we saw videotape on the roads. And in part, this comes is, as the chief pointed out, it's hard to get officers in place. It's hard to have enforcement to do this. But unfortunately, what they do have to do is go to that house and tell that husband, that wife, that family member to not come home because they got killed in a traffic crash. And the chief doesn't want to be doing that. Certainly, I was surprised to see the memo that the chief had for the municipal. We had met with the major cities, chief of police, who seemed that they were on board with this. I'm happy to go through point by point of a bunch of the different issues that got raised. At the lobby day, we have the chief of Worcester emphasizing these points in here to go along with it, along with AAA and these transportation organizations. Not something we see very often coming together in combination. And I think it'd be great to have the city join this coalition to look into enacting this law, so then we can begin implementing it into the city. Now, any questions? I've got lots of data and lots of questions I have.
You're free to send all relevant data to the committee, which I'm sure you know how to do, right?
Sure.
Okay, there we go. Thank you very much for your.
Oh, I'm sorry. One last. The owner liability being tied to the car piece. This is a civil liberties issue. There's it was a distinct choice to switch the cameras around from the front of the car to the rear of the car.
Yeah.
We want to get away from racial profiling. We should come with a driver identification piece and keep it neutral, so just focus on the rear of the car. Obviously, the downside of that is you don't actually see who's driving. So that's the idea, is that liability is attached to the car instead of the driver.
I was reading that in the House bill, and I had a question for you.
Sure.
And it said that they're going to only record, not the front of the car, only the rear. So I guess there'll be a camera going forward, but they only will take a picture when it goes past the side, right?
Right. So the camera will be behind the sign.
Behind the light or whatever. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Okay. That's what I was a bit confused about, because it's anyways.
Right.
So, yeah. Councilor Roche, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I have one thing, which is a very well-known piece of traffic calming, right? And when people want traffic calming, the first thing they ask for is more enforcement. And the studies on that, and it's been a while, but are very clear that enforcement is an effective mechanism for traffic calming if and only if the enforcement is practically continuous, which is a burden that we cannot do with our police department. So you can put patrols out for a week, a month, but if you're not sustaining them month after month after month after month, they don't change behaviors. And one of the things about the cameras they are constant enforcement. And so you can expect them to change behavior. So it's a real problem with human enforcement, that the cost to change behaviors is so high.
You know, I did have one question, and you sort of reminded me about it. The one thing I wasn't sure about is if the camera will also be enforcing a no right on red.
Yeah.
Now, I'm thinking of our right on red, we have an electronic sign on Washington and Walnut Street.
Yep.
That goes off at times, so it's not continuous. So if the pedestrian signal goes away, it's a certain time of night, it seems like, I just noticed it. So it used to always be no right on red, but then I saw that it wasn't right on red, so I took it right on red. And this is like late at night after I'm coming back, or when the pedestrian signal goes off, then so how will that be done? Like, that seems a little more complicated.
That might be an intersection that we skip. If we can't, no, seriously, we can't resolve it technologically, then we'll move on to another intersection.
I mean, just because you get a fine doesn't mean it can't be appealed.
I know, but that's a pain.
I understand. I understand.
The camera's triggered to the traffic box. So it would know if the no right on red signal was activated.
There should be a technology.
Technology doesn't always work.
There's a
I just found out with my passport parking thing, which I paid and then got a ticket. But I appealed it.
Yes, they're good on the appeals.
Yeah.
Take the picture.
So this is just a discussion item. Eventually, we are going to NAN this tonight. And then we'll try to get a resolution through the council to endorse this. So I don't want to just keep going on and on and on, because we're not voting on the cameras tonight. There's just a discussion.
Because to be clear, the bill hasn't passed yet either, right?
Correct. And also the docket item just says discussion.
Okay.
That's why. So we need a new docket item. That's why. Councilor
I just wanted a couple of follow-up comments. So one comment about the revenue neutrality, and I appreciate you should. There are senses that we make money from parking tickets, so why not this? But let's put that aside and understand that people feel like we don't want to trap people, and I understand that. We do actually pay quite a bit for traffic accidents, and that's in the form of police and fire. And as we found in the budget process, the fire department responds to a lot of car accidents. And that's a very real cost, not just in people, just in actual having the fire department, having the police department show up for accidents. So I think that there's something to be said for us, if not achieving revenue, achieving cost savings, or not necessarily having to continuously grow our departments as we increase population. So that was the first thing. I wanted to just say that I really appreciate Chief Cahoon's going through this. He was able to make it much more comprehensible in my mind than when I actually saw this memo. So I appreciate that. And it sounds like there's going to be trade-offs. There's always trade-offs. That's inevitable. So I think that's my comments. I think other things have been answered. I was going to discuss the civil liberties question, but that's been answered.
Okay. All right.
Motion NAN.
Councilor Rocha has made a motion to NAN this item. Any further discussion before we take a vote?
I can't believe I used an abbreviation. My motion is no action necessary.
We know what NAN is.
Yeah, but it's terrible. It's terrible practice in a public meeting.
Okay.
No,
Councilor Roach has made a motion for no action necessary. Any further discussion? Voice vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Ayes have it. 6-0. This is our last item on the agenda, so we are adjourned at 8:29. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and good night.
That was maybe a unspoken goal of yours.